She had always loved the piano. Ever since she was a little girl, the sound of the keys made her heart race, her mind calm, and her spirit free. Every note seemed to tell a story, and she felt like she could speak through the music when words would fail her. But as she grew older, she realized that not everyone appreciated music the way she did. Some people laughed at mistakes, while others believed talent was only worth admiring if it was loud, flashy, and impressive at first glance. She was quiet, gentle, and spent most of her time lost in melodies. This made her different from the rest, and sometimes, being different could feel like walking through a room full of eyes that didn't understand you. She was now at an academy known for its excellence in music. The place was beautiful, with high ceilings that echoed even the softest notes, and walls adorned with portraits of famous musicians. The floors were polished to a shine, and every hallway smelled faintly of varnish and old books. Students moved quickly through the corridors, carrying sheet music, talking about competitions, and practicing in rooms that resonated with laughter and sometimes frustration. For her, the academy was both a dream and a challenge. She had worked hard to get there, and yet, she always felt a little out of place among students who seemed so confident, so bold, and so ready to compete. The people around her noticed her talent, of course, but they also noticed her shyness. She rarely spoke up in group discussions, preferred sitting in the corner of the practice rooms, and often avoided the teasing that sometimes flew between students. She was friendly but cautious, careful not to draw attention unless it was through her music. Some admired her quietly, while others whispered that she was too timid, that her talent might never be fully realized because she lacked the boldness others had. One day, the academy announced a special recital. It was a big event, with parents, teachers, and even some local dignitaries expected to attend. Every student was expected to perform, but this particular recital had a twist. The faculty wanted to challenge students by pairing them in unexpected ways or giving them pieces that were meant to push their limits. For most students, this was exciting. They loved the challenge, the adrenaline, the chance to show off their hard work. But for her, it caused anxiety. She had always prepared carefully, choosing pieces she felt connected to, pieces that allowed her to express herself fully. The idea of being forced into a situation where she might falter in front of a crowd of strangers and critics was terrifying. As the days passed, rumors began to circulate. Some students were joking, not very kindly, about who might be given the hardest pieces. Some said the faculty liked to test students by putting them in uncomfortable situations. Others whispered about who might be embarrassed publicly. She tried not to listen, focusing instead on practicing quietly in her room. She played the same pieces over and over, trying to perfect each phrase, each chord. Her fingers moved gracefully over the keys, her mind fully immersed in the music. It was her sanctuary, her escape from the stress of the academy and the world outside. But one afternoon, as she was practicing in the main hall, a group of her peers gathered near the doorway. She could hear their laughter before she saw them. The leader of the group, known for teasing others, walked in with a mischievous grin. "Hey, you're performing at the recital, right?" he asked, though his tone made it clear this wasn't a friendly question. She nodded quietly, her heart sinking. "We were just wondering," he continued. "Maybe you'd like to play that piece that everyone says is impossible? It would be interesting to see you try." His friends snickered behind him. The air felt heavy, and she could feel every eye on her, waiting, judging, anticipating her reaction. She stopped playing for a moment, her hands hovering over the keys. She felt a mix of fear and determination. She knew she could play the piece, but the way they said it, it wasn't an invitation. It was a challenge, a trap meant to embarrass her. Her cheeks flushed, not just from embarrassment but from the pressure of knowing that everyone expected her to fail. She wanted to speak, to say she would not play, but the words caught in her throat. She had learned over the years that sometimes silence spoke louder than words, and perhaps her music could do the talking instead. As the recital day approached, tension in the academy grew. Students were practicing, talking excitedly, or whispering anxiously about their own performances. She spent her time in her room, practicing relentlessly. She knew that if she wanted to survive this test, she had to be ready, not just technically but emotionally. Each day, she repeated the piece slowly at first, feeling every note, then gradually speeding up until her fingers seemed to fly across the keys with a life of their own. She focused on the emotion, imagining the story behind each note, the rise and fall of the melody, the joy and sadness, the tension and release. This was her strength. While others focused on showmanship, she focused on the soul of the music. On the morning of the recital, she felt a strange mix of fear and calm. She dressed simply, choosing comfort over style, knowing that her music had to shine, not her appearance. The Academy Hall was buzzing with activity. Chairs were arranged neatly, programs distributed, and the audience slowly filling the seats. Parents, teachers, and students whispered excitedly among themselves. Backstage, performers warmed up, practiced scales, and exchanged last-minute advice. She sat quietly in a corner, her hands resting on her knees, listening to the hum of the room. Every sound, every whisper, every shuffle seemed amplified in her mind. She could feel the weight of expectation, the eyes of the audience waiting to see her. Then the moment came. She was called to the stage. Her legs felt like lead as she walked forward, each step echoing in the hall. The lights were bright, the faces in the audience blurry but numerous. She approached the piano, took a deep breath and sat down. Her fingers hovered over the keys, and for a moment, she closed her eyes. She thought of all the hours she had spent practicing, the love she had for the music, and the promise she made to herself to play no matter what. Some of the students who had teased her were in the audience, smirking, anticipating a stumble, a mistake, a moment of weakness. Their whispers reached her ears, but she focused only on the piano. She placed her fingers on the keys, felt the smoothness, the coolness, and let herself sink into the music. The first note sounded soft, clear, and full of emotion. It was a simple sound, but in that moment, it carried all of her courage, her fear, her hope, and her determination. She was no longer just a nervous student on a stage. She was a musician telling a story, sharing a piece of her soul through the piano. The audience was quiet, listening closely. Some leaned forward, surprised by the sincerity and depth of the performance. She could feel the atmosphere changing. The tension that had been building in the room seemed to shift. The smirks of her peers faded as they realized this was not a performance to mock, but a performance that demanded attention and respect. Her heart was pounding, but she let the rhythm of the music guide her, each note a step toward reclaiming her confidence and dignity. Backstage, teachers whispered to each other, exchanging glances that said, without words, this was extraordinary. Her peers who had doubted her could not help but watch in awe, their plan to humiliate her quietly unraveling with every note. She was creating something bigger than herself, bigger than their cruel intentions. She was telling a story through her music, one that words could never capture, and it was impossible for anyone to ignore. By the time the piece reached its conclusion, the room was completely silent. The final note lingered in the air, resonant and powerful. She held her hands above the keys for a moment, breathing heavily, feeling a mix of relief, pride, and amazement. Slowly, the audience began to clap, first softly, then louder, until the entire hall was filled with applause. Her heart swelled, not from the recognition, but from the realization that she had faced her fear, risen above the humiliation, and spoken through her music in a way that no one could silence. Walking off the stage, she felt lighter, freer, and more confident than ever before. She knew this was just the beginning of her journey, that there would be other challenges, other moments of doubt, but she also knew that her music was her voice, and nothing could take that away. She had transformed what was meant to be a moment of shame into a triumph of talent, courage, and authenticity. And in that quiet but powerful victory, she discovered not just her skill, but her strength. The day of the recital arrived faster than she expected. Even though she had practiced countless hours, a knot of nervousness twisted in her stomach. She walked into the Academy Hall, the sound of her shoes echoing softly against the polished floor. The room was already filled with students, teachers, and parents. The air was buzzing with excitement and whispers, as everyone awaited the performances. She could see familiar faces, some smiling warmly, others smirking, curious to see how this shy young woman would handle the challenge. Her heart beat faster with each step she took toward the backstage area. Backstage, the atmosphere was tense. Students were practicing last-minute scales, exchanging nervous smiles, and adjusting sheet music. Some whispered words of encouragement, while others seemed more interested in seeing someone fail. She found a quiet corner and sat down, closing her eyes for a moment. She tried to focus on her breathing, letting it steady her mind and calm her nerves. She reminded herself of all the hours she had spent practicing, the dedication she had poured into every note, and the love she held for the music. That love had carried her this far, and she promised herself it would continue to guide her. Her turn came sooner than she expected. A staff member called her name, and she felt a mix of fear and determination wash over her. She stood up, smoothing the wrinkles of her simple dress, and walked toward the stage. Her legs felt heavy, but she kept her head held high, determined not to let anyone see her fear. The audience's chatter dimmed as she reached the piano, and the bright stage lights made her heart race even faster. She took a deep breath and sat down on the bench, her fingers hovering over the keys. The whispers of those who wanted to see her falter reached her ears, but she pushed them aside, focusing on the music. The moment her fingers pressed the first key, a hush fell over the room. The note rang clear and pure, soft at first, but full of emotion. She could feel the weight of every eye on her, yet she felt strangely liberated. The piece she had been forced to perform was challenging, designed to test even the most skilled students. It required both technical precision and emotional depth, and she had spent countless hours preparing for this exact moment. As she moved through the first few measures, her confidence began to grow. The anxiety that had gripped her slowly melted away, replaced by a focus and determination that made her feel almost unstoppable. Some of her peers who had tried to humiliate her were sitting in the audience, smirking at first, waiting for a mistake. But as the music continued, their expressions changed. The smirks faded, replaced by surprise and awe. They realized that what they had intended as a moment of embarrassment had become a display of extraordinary talent. Each note she played seemed to carry a story, a depth of feeling that went beyond technique. The audience was no longer waiting for her to fail. They were captivated by the beauty and emotion of her performance. The piece grew more complex as it progressed. Fast arpeggios and intricate runs demanded every bit of her attention, but she had prepared for this. Her fingers danced across the keys with precision, yet her playing was never mechanical. There was life and soul in every note. She could feel the story of the music unfolding under her hands, and with every measure, she became more confident. Her fear was replaced by a quiet power, a realization that she was not defined by the doubts or cruelty of others, but by her own dedication and passion. As she played, she noticed subtle shifts in the audience's reactions. Some people leaned forward, eyes wide, completely absorbed in the performance. Others sat back, silent, as if they could not believe what they were hearing. The teachers exchanged impressed glances, whispering to each other about her talent and the emotional depth of her playing. Even those who had doubted her now seemed to understand that she had something special, something that could not be diminished by mockery or manipulation. She reached the middle section of the piece, where the music demanded a delicate touch and a deep emotional connection. Her hands moved lightly over the keys, each note perfectly placed, yet filled with expression. She imagined the story behind the music, the feelings it was meant to convey, and she poured herself into it completely. The audience felt it too. Some eyes glistened with tears, moved by the purity and honesty of her performance. She had transformed the stage from a place of potential humiliation into a space where her talent and heart could shine. With every measure, she felt more alive. The challenging passages that once made her anxious now gave her a sense of exhilaration. The faster runs, the difficult chords, the leaps across the keyboard. She met each one with confidence and precision. The music seemed to flow through her effortlessly, and she was no longer just performing a piece. She was telling a story, expressing emotions she could not put into words. The room was silent except for the sound of the piano, a perfect symphony of dedication, talent, and courage. Towards the end of the piece, the music built to a dramatic climax. Her fingers flew over the keys, each note ringing with clarity and strength. She could feel the energy of the audience, their attention fully captured by her performance. The final chords demanded both power and subtlety, and she executed them flawlessly. The last note lingered in the air, resonant and pure, as if the music itself was taking a deep breath. For a moment, the entire hall was silent, the audience frozen in awe. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started as a gentle clapping, then grew louder and louder, until the entire room was filled with the sound of appreciation and admiration. She sat for a moment, letting the applause wash over her, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and joy. The fear and anxiety that had gripped her earlier had transformed into a powerful sense of accomplishment. She had faced a moment designed to humiliate her and had turned it into a triumph. Her music had spoken for her when words were not enough, and in doing so, she had earned the respect and admiration of everyone present. The smirks of her peers were gone, replaced by looks of genuine awe and, in some cases, regret for underestimating her. As she stood to leave the stage, she felt a sense of empowerment she had never known before. She had proven to herself that she could overcome fear, face adversity, and rise above attempts to diminish her. This moment was not just about the music. It was about resilience, courage, and the strength to remain true to oneself in the face of doubt and cruelty. The applause continued as she walked off the stage, her heart full, knowing that this was a turning point in her journey, a moment she would remember for the rest of her life. After the recital, the young pianist felt a mixture of exhilaration and exhaustion. Her hands tingled from the intense performance, and her legs ached from sitting so long on the stage bench. Yet, beneath the physical fatigue was a glowing sense of accomplishment. She had faced the challenge that was meant to humiliate her and had transformed it into an opportunity to show her true self. Back in her practice room, she sat down, letting the silence of the empty hall surround her, savoring the stillness after the storm of music and applause. It was a quiet victory, one she needed to feel fully before the rest of the world could process it. The days following the recital brought a shift in the atmosphere at the academy. Peers who had once whispered or smirked now looked at her with respect, though some still hid it behind carefully neutral expressions. Teachers complimented her, noting not just her technical skill, but the emotional depth of her performance. Even students who had doubted her talent admitted, often quietly, that she had more strength than they had expected. It was strange to feel seen in a way she had never been before, and it left her both proud and reflective. She realized that the humiliation she had feared was a gift in disguise. It had pushed her to reveal the best version of herself, and in doing so, she had earned admiration that no easy path could have given her. Yet, even as she received congratulations and warm smiles, the young pianist knew that the journey was far from over. Music was not a destination, but a lifelong pursuit. Each performance, each practice session was a chance to learn and grow. She returned to her room and began practicing again, not with anxiety this time, but with a renewed sense of purpose. Her fingers moved more confidently across the keys, her mind focused on precision and expression. She experimented with new pieces, exploring styles she had never attempted before, challenging herself to expand her abilities. The recital had taught her that her fear could be a powerful motivator, but her love for music was stronger. Word of her performance spread beyond the academy. Some local music enthusiasts had attended the recital and shared their impressions with friends and colleagues. Social media posts praised the unexpected depth and talent of the young pianist, describing how she had silenced a room that expected her to fail. Invitations for small performances and collaborations began to arrive, each one an opportunity to grow her experience and share her music with a wider audience. The young pianist approached these invitations thoughtfully, knowing that each choice would shape the path she wanted for herself. She realized that true success was not about fame or recognition alone, but about remaining true to her passion and values. Despite the recognition, she remained humble. She understood that talent without dedication could be fleeting. Each morning, she rose early to practice scales and exercises, sometimes repeating passages until they were flawless, other times experimenting with new melodies. She also spent time listening to other musicians, drawing inspiration from their interpretations while finding her own voice. Her days were structured but filled with joy, a balance of discipline and creativity that allowed her to flourish. She also discovered that sharing her process with peers brought a new dimension to her growth. Helping others with difficult passages, or offering tips on expression and phrasing, reminded her that music was not just about personal achievement, but also about community and connection. Challenges continued to arise. At times, she faced pieces that seemed impossible, filled with intricate runs and unpredictable rhythms. At other times, self-doubt crept in, whispering that perhaps her success at the recital had been a fluke. But she had learned a vital lesson. Fear and doubt were natural, but they could not control her. She met every challenge with patience, focusing on incremental progress and the joy of discovery. Sometimes, she would stop mid-practice, listen closely, and adjust a phrase until it resonated with the emotion she intended. Other times, she would play a piece over and over, learning the subtle nuances that turn technique into art. Each day, she honed not just her skill, but her understanding of music as a language of feeling and story. Her confidence grew alongside her skill. No longer the timid student in the corner, she began to participate more actively in discussions, offering insights and observations about the pieces she studied. Her teachers noticed the change, encouraging her to explore leadership roles in group performances and ensemble work. She discovered that guiding others did not diminish her own abilities. Instead, it enriched her understanding of music and strengthened her connections with fellow students. The respect she received was no longer solely about a single performance but about her consistent dedication, humility, and passion. Social interactions also shifted. Students who had once tried to intimidate or belittle her now approached with curiosity and tentative friendliness. Some asked her for advice on pieces they were struggling with, while others sought her opinion on interpretations and phrasing. She responded graciously, remembering her own early days of learning and the kindness of those who had helped her. Through these interactions, she learned the power of patience and empathy, realizing that her experiences with humiliation had not hardened her heart, but had given her the strength to lift others. She found satisfaction not just in her personal achievements, but in the small victories of seeing others grow and succeed alongside her. One evening, after a long day of practice and coaching, she sat at her piano reflecting on how far she had come. The room was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of a lamp, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She thought about the recital, about the fear she had felt, and about the way she had turned a moment meant to humiliate her into a defining triumph. It was a reminder that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Her fingers gently traced the keys, not to play a piece, but simply to feel the instrument beneath her hands, to connect with the music and the journey it represented. As she prepared for the next challenges in her musical journey, she understood that growth required both vulnerability and resilience. Each performance was an opportunity to reveal a piece of herself, and each mistake was a lesson in humility and improvement. She embraced the uncertainty and excitement of what lay ahead, knowing that her passion for music would guide her through both success and setbacks. The recital had been a pivotal moment, but it was only one step in a lifelong pursuit of mastery and self-expression. Through it all, she discovered that music was not merely a skill or a talent to be displayed. It was a voice, a refuge, and a bridge between her inner world and the hearts of others. Each note she played carried her emotions, her experiences, and her story. And as she continued to practice, perform, and grow, she realized that the true power of her talent lay not in impressing others, but in remaining faithful to her own love for music, in letting it guide her through the highs and lows of life, and in using it to connect, inspire, and transform both herself and those who listened. Weeks passed, and the young pianist continued to immerse herself in music, practicing diligently while embracing every opportunity to perform. Each recital, rehearsal, and casual performance became a chance to explore the depth of her talent and to connect with those around her. Her confidence had grown tremendously since the first recital that had been meant to humiliate her. Now, when she played, it was not to prove herself to skeptics, but to share the music and her emotions openly and fully. Her presence in the academy had transformed. She was no longer a shy, overlooked student, but someone who inspired both peers and teachers. The academy decided to host a major end-of-year concert, bringing together students of all levels, parents, and local music enthusiasts. The young pianist was invited to perform as a featured soloist. She felt a surge of nervous excitement. Unlike before, this was not a moment forced upon her by others' cruel intentions. This was an opportunity she had earned through her talent, dedication, and resilience. Yet, with the honor came responsibility. She knew the eyes of the audience would be on her, and the weight of expectation could be heavy. But she no longer feared humiliation. She now understood that her music was her voice, and no judgment could silence it. In the days leading up to the concert, she poured herself into preparation. She carefully chose a piece that allowed her to showcase both technical skill and emotional depth, a piece she had connected with deeply. Her practice sessions were intense yet joyful. She explored every nuance, experimenting with phrasing, dynamics, and expression. Her fingers danced across the keys, her mind fully present, and her heart open to the story the music told. Occasionally, she paused to reflect, realizing how far she had come from the nervous, timid girl who had once been forced to perform as a joke. Now, every note she played carried intention, strength, and authenticity. The day of the concert arrived. The hall was larger than the one she had performed in before, and the audience was filled with faces familiar and new. Parents, teachers, students, and local music lovers filled the seats, their whispers and chatter creating a low hum of anticipation. Backstage, she felt a familiar flutter of nerves, but it was different this time. There was no fear of humiliation, only excitement and determination. She took a deep breath, focusing on her love for the piano and the journey that had brought her here. She was ready to play, not for anyone else, but to express herself fully and honestly. When her name was called, she walked confidently to the stage. The bright lights illuminated the polished piano and the audience's expectant faces. She sat down, positioned her hands over the keys, and closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. The first note sounded, soft yet clear, and immediately the room fell silent. The music began to flow, gentle at first, then gradually building in complexity and emotion. She felt every chord, every interval, every phrase resonate within her. Her fingers moved with precision, yet the performance was never mechanical. It was alive, breathing, and deeply expressive. As the piece progressed, the audience became increasingly captivated. They leaned forward in their seats, eyes fixed on the pianist, drawn into the story she was telling. Each crescendo and delicate passage communicated emotion in a way words never could. Those who had once doubted her, those who had tried to undermine her, now watched in awe. Her music had a power that transcended judgment, transforming skepticism into admiration. The room seemed to vibrate with the energy of her playing, and the young pianist felt a profound connection with everyone listening. At the midpoint of the piece, the technical difficulty increased, requiring rapid runs, delicate fingerwork, and careful control of dynamics. This section had once intimidated her, but now, she approached it with calm confidence. Her fingers danced across the keys effortlessly, each note perfectly articulated yet filled with feeling. The audience was spellbound, recognizing not just her skill, but the courage and dedication behind it. The young pianist felt a surge of empowerment, knowing she was not just performing music, but telling a story, expressing emotions, and connecting hearts through her playing. As the music moved toward its climax, the room seemed to hold its breath. The pianist poured every ounce of her energy and emotion into the final section, creating a powerful and moving experience. The rapid passages were executed flawlessly, each note resonating with clarity and intention. The audience responded not with whispers or judgment, but with attentive silence, completely absorbed in the performance. The final chord rang out, sustained and beautiful, filling the hall with a lingering sense of completion and awe. For a moment, no one moved, no one spoke. The impact of her performance hung in the air, profound and undeniable. Then, slowly, the applause began. At first, a gentle clapping, then louder and louder, until the entire hall erupted with cheers and appreciation. Some audience members were visibly moved, tears in their eyes, while others simply watched with admiration and respect. Teachers nodded, impressed by the growth and emotional depth of her performance. Even her peers, who had once doubted her, now offered genuine smiles and applause. She rose from the bench, her hands still tingling from the intensity of the music, and took a modest bow. The sense of accomplishment and validation she felt was immense, yet humbling. This was not about proving herself to anyone else. It was about embracing her passion and sharing it authentically. Backstage, she was met with congratulations and words of encouragement. People praised not only her technical skill but the emotion and presence she brought to the performance. Some students expressed surprise, admitting they had underestimated her abilities. Others thanked her for inspiring them, showing that dedication and resilience could transform fear and doubt into triumph. The young pianist smiled, accepting the praise gracefully, but also reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. The lessons she had learned about courage, patience, and authenticity were more valuable than any applause. In the days following the concert, the impact of her performance continued to resonate. Invitations for other performances and collaborations arrived, as word of her talent spread. She considered each opportunity thoughtfully, recognizing the importance of choosing experiences that would allow her to grow and remain true to herself. She continued to practice diligently, exploring new pieces and styles, pushing the boundaries of her skill, and deepening her understanding of music. Each day was filled with discovery, reflection, and joy, reinforcing her love for the piano and the power of expressing oneself through art. The young pianist's journey had transformed not only her own life but also the way others perceived her. The initial humiliation she had faced had become a turning point, leading to personal growth, confidence, and recognition. She had learned that fear and doubt could be overcome with dedication, courage, and a commitment to one's passion. She had discovered that true triumph was not just about public recognition, but about embracing one's talent, expressing oneself authentically, and inspiring others along the way. The power of her music lay not only in technical mastery, but in the honesty and emotion she conveyed, touching hearts and leaving a lasting impression. As she looked back on her journey, she realized that every challenge, every moment of doubt, had contributed to her growth. The moments that once seemed threatening had been opportunities in disguise, pushing her to rise above fear and embrace her full potential. Her talent was no longer a secret, but a voice that resonated with authenticity and power. The applause, the admiration, and the respect she received were not the ultimate goal. The true reward was the realization of her own strength, the depth of her passion, and the ability to connect with others through the universal language of music. With each note she played, she continued to inspire, move, and transform both herself and those who listened, carrying the lessons of resilience, courage, and authenticity into every performance and every moment of her life. After the concert, life began to shift in ways the young pianist had never imagined. The recognition she had received opened doors, not just to performances but to experiences that allowed her to grow in confidence and skill. Invitations came from local music clubs, small theaters, and even community events where her talent could shine in new ways. Each opportunity was exciting, yet she approached them with humility and thoughtfulness, always mindful of the value of preparation, dedication, and emotional connection. Her journey was no longer about proving herself to others, but about embracing her love for music and sharing it genuinely. The impact of her growth extended to her peers at the academy. Students who had once mocked or doubted her began to approach her with respect, some even seeking her advice and guidance. She welcomed these interactions graciously, understanding that her experiences had given her insight that could help others navigate their own challenges. The camaraderie that developed was grounded in mutual respect rather than competition. She found satisfaction in supporting others, knowing that her encouragement could help them find their own voices and confidence. This sense of community and collaboration became as important as her personal accomplishments. Teachers at the academy also took notice of her development. They saw not only her skill but the maturity and dedication she had cultivated. Some encouraged her to take on leadership roles in ensemble performances, to mentor younger students, and to explore the emotional depths of more challenging pieces. Each of these opportunities allowed her to refine her abilities further while inspiring those around her. She realized that her talent was not just a personal gift but a responsibility, a way to influence, inspire, and uplift others through music. Despite her growing recognition, she remained grounded. Every morning began with focused practice, sometimes repeating difficult passages to refine them, other times exploring new compositions and techniques. She listened attentively to recordings of master pianists, not to imitate them, but to learn different interpretations and deepen her understanding of music. Her dedication was balanced with moments of reflection and quiet joy, allowing her to maintain a genuine connection to her passion. This balance kept her centered, reminding her that music was a lifelong journey of exploration and self-expression, not just a series of performances or accolades. Through these experiences, she discovered that music was a bridge between people. Audiences responded not just to technical skill but to the emotion and authenticity she conveyed. In small community halls or casual gatherings, she noticed how a well-played melody could evoke smiles, tears, and heartfelt conversations. Music became a shared language, one that transcended words and connected hearts. She began to understand that the true power of her talent was not only in mastering the keys, but in touching the lives of others and inspiring them through her dedication, vulnerability, and courage. Her confidence continued to grow as she navigated each new opportunity. Challenges arose, pieces that demanded greater technical mastery, collaborations with other musicians that required communication and adaptability, and performances in front of larger, more diverse audiences. Yet, she approached each with resilience, remembering the moment when she had transformed humiliation into triumph. That experience had taught her that fear could be confronted, doubts could be overcome, and passion could guide her through uncertainty. Each challenge was no longer a threat but a chance to learn, grow, and express herself fully. The young pianist also began to reflect on her personal journey. She thought about the fear she had once felt, the whispers and smirks that had surrounded her, and the way she had turned those moments into opportunities for growth. She understood that setbacks and attempts at humiliation were not signs of weakness, but tests of resilience and determination. Every mistake she had made along the way had contributed to her understanding, her emotional depth, and her ability to perform with authenticity. She learned to embrace her vulnerabilities, recognizing them as sources of strength rather than shame. Over time, she realized that her story had become an inspiration to others. Students who were shy, overlooked, or doubted themselves saw in her example that courage and dedication could transform fear into accomplishment. Teachers who had once questioned her abilities acknowledged her growth and encouraged her to continue exploring her potential. Families and audiences who witnessed her performances felt the power of music to move hearts and create connection. Her journey was no longer just her own. It was part of a larger story about perseverance, self-belief, and the transformative power of passion. In quiet moments, she would sit at her piano, reflecting on the lessons she had learned. She thought about the journey from fear to confidence, from humiliation to triumph, and from doubt to self-assurance. She understood that success was not measured solely by applause or recognition, but by the courage to pursue one's passion, the humility to keep learning, and the willingness to connect with others authentically. Every note she played carried not only technical skill but also emotion, resilience, and a story of personal growth. Her musical journey also deepened her understanding of empathy and compassion. She remembered how difficult it had been to face humiliation and fear, and she used those experiences to support and guide others. Whether helping a fellow student with a tricky passage, offering encouragement before a performance, or simply listening to someone's struggles, she recognized the value of kindness and understanding. Music had taught her not only to express herself but also to appreciate and nurture the talents and emotions of others. She realized that true artistry was as much about heart as it was about skill. As she continued to perform and grow, she began to see the bigger picture. Music was a lifelong pursuit, a journey without a final destination. Each performance, practice session, and interaction contributed to her understanding and development. She embraced the challenges, celebrated the small victories, and learned from mistakes along the way. She remained passionate, dedicated, and humble, knowing that every day offered new opportunities to explore her talent and connect with others through the universal language of music. Looking back, the young pianist understood that the moment she had been forced to perform as a form of humiliation had been pivotal. It had been a turning point that revealed her inner strength, her passion, and her resilience. She had discovered that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. She had learned that her voice, expressed through music, was powerful and unshakable. The experience had shaped her into a musician who played with authenticity, emotion, and confidence, inspiring others along the way. Today, she continues her journey with determination and joy. She performs, practices, teaches, and learns, embracing every opportunity to grow and share her passion. She knows that challenges will arise, but she is prepared to face them with the courage and resilience she discovered within herself. Her story is a testament to the power of perseverance, the beauty of authentic expression, and the lasting impact of pursuing one's passion with dedication and heart. Through music, she has found not only her voice but also a way to touch the lives of others, proving that even in the face of doubt and adversity, talent, courage, and authenticity can transform fear into triumph, and silence into a powerful, moving story that resonates far beyond the notes on the piano.